Good morning, everyone. Welcome to what is perhaps the final and largest mayoral candidate forum before election starts. My name is Carlo Capua. I am so honored to welcome you here today. We are live on Facebook. We had almost 1,000 people register for this event, plus the people that are on Facebook. So if you are on Facebook, welcome. You can also see us at the Star Telegram page, star-telegram.com for a live stream, or go to the Facebook page for the Fort Worth Chamber. We're so excited to have you here. In the spirit of inclusivity, for any of you who may be hearing impaired or maybe English may not be your first language, we're going to enable auto transcription. So if you're on the Zoom call and you can see at the bottom a little notice to click on enable live auto captions, if you click on that, you will be able to see all of the words that are being said. So candidates today, please feel free to speak clearly so we can capture all that to make sure everybody can follow along. Also, for those of you on the Zoom call, we have disabled chat for participants, but candidates will be able to still be able to chat. They can respond to each other. And again, to all the candidates, to everyone on the call, and to anyone watching online on Facebook or the Star Telegram webpage, we just ask that you help us engage with one another with civility, dignity, and respect. So ask you to help us achieve that goal. All right, we are very pleased to announce we have a number of sponsors with us here today. So we're going to pop them on just so you can see them. We're going to spotlight them, starting with our good friend, Mr. D. Jennings. And D is the president of the Fort Worth Metropolitan Black Chamber of Commerce. D, great to see you. Thank you for being here. We also have with us Mrs. Annette Landeros. Oh, but we've got Brandon too. And Annette did not change her hairstyle, everyone. That is Brandon Gengelbach. He is the president of the Fort Worth Chamber of Commerce. Brandon, always great to see you. Thank you for being here. And we also have Mrs. Annette Landeros with the Fort Worth Hispanic Chamber of Commerce as president and CEO. Annette, thank you so much for your support of this program. And finally, Mr. Steve Kaufman. He is the president and editor of the Fort Worth Star Telegram. Everyone, a virtual round of applause for our presenters and sponsors today. Thank you for being here. We'd also like to thank the meeting squad for being our virtual producers to help make today's event possible. All right, I think that is all I have, and it is my pleasure now to turn you over, and Bill, if you'll help me spotlight, we've got with us Mr. Ryan Rusak, and Ryan is the opinion editor for the Fort Worth Star Telegram to give us the format, the ground rules. Ryan, serving as our esteemed moderator. Ryan, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. We have a format that we think will yield an exciting and fast-paced discussion. Each candidate will have a 30-second introductory statement. We'll go in alphabetical order by last name on those. When we get to questions, each candidate will have 45 seconds to answer. Candidates will not all candidates will be asked all questions. So we have introduced a challenge feature in which candidates who don't get a question but want to weigh in will have 2 opportunities to invite themselves into a question, and I'll go to them. I will ask follow-ups at my discretion. Follow-ups will be for 15 seconds. Also, the challenge questions will be for 15 seconds. And then at the end, we'll have a summary statement, 30 seconds in reverse order, reverse alphabetical order. I just want to say that we did have several other candidates who were invited. We had a couple that had some conflicts come up at the last minute and couldn't attend. Dr. Byrd and Mr. Rector, but we will plow ahead and we are ready to get started. We'll start with those 30-second introductory statements. Daniel Caldwell, you're up first.
Good morning, everyone. I'm DC Caldwell. I am, as you know, one of the 10 candidates running for mayor of Fort Worth, and I'd like to compliment my cohorts on all of us collaborating over the past couple months to have a civil race with pleasant discourse. I can see that most of us have our motivations and competence to do the job. We just have different approaches, but I hope you like mine.
Thank you. Maddie Parker, you're up next.
Hey, everybody, great to be with you today. My name is Maddie Parker, running to be your next Fort Worth mayor. I was born to a ballerina and a criminal defense attorney turned Methodist minister and raised in the big city of Hico, Texas. My husband David and I moved here 14 years ago to raise our 3 beautiful children. I have 17 years of public service in national, state, and local politics. I most recently served as chief of staff for Mayor Price and Fort Worth City Council. Go-to leader that served alongside city management, our elected officials on behalf of our community to really move projects and policy forward to get things done. Currently, I'm the CEO and founding CEO of T3 or Tarrant 2 and Through Partnership, where we're focused on getting our students to and through onto post-secondary, and most importantly, to educate our future workforce. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Look forward to the discourse.
Thank you. Next, Deborah Peoples.
So good morning, Ryan. This is my kind of forum because it's inclusive. It's including chambers. It's included chambers from across the city and so much diversity. And that's what I'm all about. I'm about bringing this together, our city together as one Fort Worth. We are the 12th largest city in the country. We're growing by leaps and bounds. We need leadership that looks like this city, and we need leadership that is forward thinking and going to be inclusive. So this is probably one of the best forums ever because it includes everyone.
Great, thank you. We'll move into our questions. This first question will go to all of the candidates.
Ryan, I think we've got Ann Zeta still to do her opening statement.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I knew I was going to do that. Ms. Zeta, I apologize. Please go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Ann Zeta, and I am a certified city planner. I served on the Zoning Commission for 6 years, and I have had the honor of serving District 9 for the last 7 years as the City Council representative for District 9, one of the most vibrant and diverse districts in the entire city. I look forward to serving the entire city. I have not limited myself in my service on the council to District 9, and so I look forward to being able to work with districts across the city and neighborhoods across the city to move our city forward in the most wonderful, progressive way that we possibly can.
Thank you. And again, Ann, I apologize.
No
Our
worries.
first question will go to all the candidates, and it's on a topic that is currently in the news today. Hundreds of business leaders across the country have issued a statement opposing legislative proposals that critics say would make it harder to vote in many states. That includes Texas, and some are raising concerns about the state losing business if proposals move forward. How should the next mayor handle this topic, particularly when it comes to recruiting business? And we'll start with Daniel Caldwell.
Well, my first thought is that the mayor needs to stay within his office and wheelhouse as far as he can discourage the legislators from passing restrictions to the ease of voting, but he cannot directly pass much in the way of policy that would do so. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. Maddie Parker, you're up next.
Well, there's never a more important time than right now in a municipal election where voter turnout is usually 6 to 7% of the total registered voters in Fort Worth. We got to be focused right now on getting our mayoral registered voters out to vote. anytime your CEOs are speaking up out of concern, we have to listen, especially in a city that is trying to grow jobs and economy. It's not lost on me that we're being hosted today by our 3 chambers of commerce. I think we allow our business community to speak loudly to our state delegation, our federal delegation about how they're feeling on voting rights acts, working with our Tarrant County delegation at the state level and federal level to make sure our voices are being heard and what our constituents are telling us about those issues.
Maddie, let me follow up on that. Do you have a idea of how you might alter your message in pitching businesses to come to Fort Worth if this becomes an issue?
That's a great question. So, first of all, you've got a pretty diverse delegation in Tarrant County right now that probably differ on their opinions on what's happening at the state legislative level. The first thing you need is put those people in a room, because you can't have them pitted against one another if you're really focused on pitching business to the city of Fort Worth, or across Texas rather. And that's what you're seeing happen in states like Georgia, where companies are really upset about what they're seeing with voting rights across their state.
Thank you. Ann Zeta on this question.
Am I unmuted? Sorry, I keep getting a notice saying that I'm not.
You're good, Ann.
Okay, thank you. I absolutely think that the mayor should stand up and do everything in our power to not limit voters' rights. It is a right of everyone to participate in the process of electing their elected officials, those that are going to represent them. So I think as a mayor, having that platform to support businesses that are stepping up now, and the people that work for those businesses, and saying that they do not want their rights to vote limited. It saddens me every day to see the limited amount of people that participate in our voting process. And so anything that limits that is something that we should stand up and speak very loudly about not supporting going forward.
Deborah Peoples, over to you.
So Ryan, as a candidate with the most business experience, I know that an inclusive city is good for business. And the mayor's job is to sell this city and to make sure that we are bringing everyone to the table. And so, I tell people, I sat on search committee. I worked on merger committees. I know what businesses are looking for, and anything that limits diversity and inclusion is bad for business. And as your mayor, I'm going to be out representing everyone.
Deborah, we are still having glitches with your video. You may want to turn that off going forward.
Okay. Is that better, Ryan? Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Would you like for me to repeat anything?
I think we got you. It was just a little in and out.
Okay.
We'll move on to question 2. On economic development, we've seen how tremendous growth in Fort Worth can outpace infrastructure and create unintended drags on quality of life. How would you seek to manage development to prevent that? Ann Zeta, we'll start with you.
Well, I think that is a perfect place to start. As a city planner, I think that planning ahead for growth is absolutely vital and important. We have pointed to all the growth that we have coming to Fort Worth as this is a fantastic thing, which it actually is, but we don't want to just allow that growth to happen to us. So an emphasis as a city, ensure that the infrastructure that supports that growth is in place, and that the aging infrastructure that we have in our community has been taken care of and brought up to the standards that it needs to be to support that growth is vitally important. In District 9, we have many examples of long-range plans that have now started to come to fruition with that growth, with urban villages and long-range city plans. And I think that is something that all of Fort Worth deserves to have. So being proactive about that growth and planning ahead for it, and including all of the partners at the table to have a say in what their neighborhoods look like, is vital and important to addressing this growth.
Thank you. Daniel Caldwell, over to you.
So the first thing I think about when we talk about infrastructure is transportation. We have several areas of the city that have functionally dead ends and bottlenecks, and you would address the inadequate access to those areas by literally building bridges, connecting what were previously dead ends, crossing the Trinity River, making, for example, Heritage Trace Parkway extend to the Highway 287 feeder road. There are small gaps where the road has already been 95% built, but we left off the connection to the other road. That is really what increases the capacity of our infrastructure to support more people.
Thank you. Thank you. Maddie Parker, over to you.
So I'm going to talk about two different things. First, let's talk about bond deployment. We've got to work and coordinate with our school districts and the county on any bond election that forward to make sure we're sequencing those projects appropriately. We have a property management department at the city of Fort Worth that's done an excellent job deploying more quickly, but we can always be better. You need the private sector at the table to make sure we're actually performing where you need to be. The second thing I'm going to do is create an infrastructure task force that's made of federal, state, and local entities, and included the private sector, and ask the North Central Texas Council of Governments to really lead that infrastructure project. We are growing at such a clip. We've got to take that responsibility incredibly seriously and focus on the economic development piece of that of our growth, not just people, jobs. Thank you.
Thank you. One of the mayor's top responsibilities, as you all well know, is to market the city for business expansion and relocation. I'd like to have you discuss what you think is missing in the city's current pitch to corporate relocation and what you might change or the style that you might change. We'll start with Deborah Peoples.
So Ryan, I use two words. I say we have to be intentional and deliberate when we're pitching our businesses. And one of the things that I think that Fort Worth misses is to talk about our amazing diversity. I mean, when companies come here, they're looking for diverse communities. They're looking for an education. They're looking at things like housing and good housing stock. They're looking at transportation and infrastructure. And I think we are missing the boat here because we don't talk about all those great things. And especially we miss the boat on talking about our amazing diversity. So I think that we have to be very intentional and deliberate about selling all the great things that are here. And the fact that, you know, today we have 3 chambers coming together, that's what we need to talk about, is our ability to work together.
Thank you. Deborah, a follow-up. How would you address concerns about workforce development?
I think that we have to, intentional and deliberate. Ryan, we have to show our diversity. We have to show and make sure that we are bringing everybody to the table. I've talked to Asian American engineers who feel left out of the process. We need to put together boards and commissions that represent our diversity, and we need to have diversity represented in our leadership.
Maddie Parker, you're up next.
Great question. So the first thing we've got to do is really market the city of Fort Worth with an aggressive fashion, and do so in coordination with all 3 chambers that are represented here today. You need a mayor that can be an ambassador for this city, selling what it looks like to do business in Fort Worth, Texas, and go after the companies we know would love to be in a business-friendly environment in Fort Worth. To Deborah's point, we are absolutely a diverse community, but we need to celebrate that in a new way and make sure all folks across Fort Worth feel included in that conversation. You also have a very young city. Our average age here is around 33. That bodes well for the future of Fort Worth. What does it look like to make sure our workforce is represented and a selling point? I'm incredibly proud of the work that the chamber has done, all 3 chambers in the middle of COVID, to pivot and really focus on bringing business to Fort Worth, Texas. You're even seeing announcements come out today. We need to capitalize that and really sell the city of Fort Worth well across this country.
You mentioned that it needs to be a more aggressive approach. Can you define what you mean by that? What would be different in your approach from what the approach is now?
Yeah. So these are things the Fort Worth Chamber is already working on, what it looks like to have a robust marketing budget across the city to really ensure we're selling what the image of Fort Worth really is and what the potential is to do business here. I want to intentionally work on a relationship with our state partners in Austin to make sure they see Fort Worth as a first place to bring business that are looking at Texas broadly. And the third piece is really, what does it look like to go to companies that maybe continually to pivot, especially in 2021, as we emerge from COVID-19 and every business is reevaluating their options, and we want them to be in Fort Worth, Texas, understand what it looks like to do business. The last thing I'll just say, so let's quit worrying about Dallas and let's worry about what's going on a global scale. Technology has completely changed the game, and we want our small businesses to compete in that same way as we do as our large corporate relocation opportunities.
And Zeta on the marketing of Fort Worth.
I think similarly to many of the other things where the city is not the boss of everyone that it plays in this space, we have the chambers, we have our economic development folks, and then we have organizations like Near Southside Inc. and Downtown Fort Worth Inc. and all of these people and all of these organizations work really hard and have done some amazing things during COVID to support the businesses that currently exist in Fort Worth. But putting all those together and doing that outreach to bring people here is another aspect that they can work on as well. But I think focusing on the businesses that we currently have in Fort Worth, making sure that they have the support that they need, and examples in District 9 are incredible that other business would see that coming from other places and not just know that Fort Worth is a place that they can be successful because of a business environment, but also because of the community environment where people come together to support the businesses that exist in Fort Worth.
And are you saying that you think there needs to be less marketing to outside the business and more focus on current business?
Absolutely not. I don't think we should slack off on marketing to outside businesses. I'm saying we use the support that we provide to our current businesses to also market to the outside companies that might want to come here and encourage them to come here because of how incredibly strong we support the businesses that exist in this city. We have incredible entrepreneurs and small business owners in Fort Worth with given even smaller investments would be required to help those businesses grow and just convince someone from someone else to come here. These are people who are already passionate about this community, want to have employees that come from this community, and having the support of their city and their chambers is something that will shine out to those other businesses that might want to relocate here as well.
I think we're getting a little lag from Ryan. Ryan, are you there? If you can unmute, just let us know you're there. All right, Ryan has dropped momentarily, I believe. So let's continue. Let's throw that over to actually, let's go to our next question. We've got school achievement in Fort Worth has lagged, particularly in key areas such as reading, and COVID-19 and distance learning have made it worse. Business leaders have significant concerns about workforce development, but the mayor has limited indirect influence. What would you do specifically to try to boost Fort Worth schools? Let's go with the first person I see at the top, Maddie Parker. You have 45 seconds.
This one's near and dear to me, obviously with T3. We've really got to invest in our students that sit in classrooms today. They are the talent workforce of the future. You must use a collective impact model to ensure that we're partnering with our school districts across Fort Worth. There are 16 that actually touch the city of Fort Worth, so it's not just about Fort Worth ISD. How do we market what is already happening for students and intentionally put business mindset into schools? What do I mean by that? We know that our businesses right here in Fort Worth, Texas, know what they need in the workforce of the future, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. They also know what kind of training they want those students to receive. Special thanks to TCC. They have stepped up in huge ways. They were one of our first partners with the Tarrant 2 and 3 partnership. We need to lean on TCC to understand what does it look like to infuse that education while these students are in high school, graduating more students with an associate's degree or higher so that when they graduate high school, they are ready to work for our Fort Worth employers and really make a difference in the education trajectory of our students.
Thank you, Maddie. Same question. Let's go to Ann Zeta. Same question to you.
I think absolutely we need to bring everyone together in order to be supportive of those that run the ISDs in our city. We have been places where we say it's an independent school district and therefore that's not in the purview of the city, but it absolutely is in the purview of the city to have strong education in our communities. What I've done in District 9 is worked with neighborhood associations to support the schools that are in their neighborhoods across the district. People who don't even have children that attend those schools realize that having schools in the district that support the children that are in their district is beneficial to all, even if it is not directly benefiting a child that you have. So growing the support of our school districts throughout the communities, having businesses be supportive of them, individual community members, and the mayor champion and all of that is something that will help make our school districts better and our outcomes for students better.
Thank you, Ann. Let's go over to Daniel Caldwell. Daniel, same question to you. You have 45 seconds.
I would first point out that I drafted a brief response in the chat for anyone who reads those. I said the city's improvement to the schools comes from having city employees directly connecting and interacting with teachers, administrators, parents, and students. That means librarians, Parks and Rec representatives, police, and firefighters holding workshops at the schools and in the neighborhoods that are struggling. Another thought I have thrown out many times is the Fort Worth Police Department has a ride-in program where basically a parent can spend a day with a cop and the police officers are often more familiar with community programs that parents and families might want to get involved in, besides the ones that the schools advertise, in order to be able to kind of connect the city with those families that need help by being able to provide personalized one-on-one suggestions for resources that individual parents and families can connect to.
Thank you, Daniel. And I see Deborah Peoples has her hand raised. She has a 15-second challenge, and then Ryan will throw it back to you to pick up the moderating.
There, you finally unmuted me. I think anybody who knows me knows how passionate I am about this subject. The city better get engaged in what's going on with public education. These are the employees, these are the homeowners, these are the business owners of tomorrow. And Carlo, we have to stop talking about what we're going to do and start working with our school districts, or we're going to find ourselves with a city that is lagging behind and people are not going to want to come here. And I am absolutely passionate about our partnering with our school systems to make sure that our children are getting the best possible education that they can.
Thank you, Deborah. And now let's turn it back over to Ryan Rusak. Ryan, if you'd like to pick up the moderating duties, it's back to you, and you should be unmuted.
Great, thank you. And I'm sorry, everyone. Zoom giveth and Zoom taketh away. We'll move on to question 5. What should the city do to encourage development and job growth in areas that need them most and among underserved populations that need them the most? And how would you balance the risk of displacing current residents? And we will start with Daniel Caldwell on that one.
You were addressing displacement of current residents?
I'm addressing issues with development that can sometimes raise property values and force out longtime residents.
Well, as far as my approach to preventing taxes from going up to the point that they force out residents, it seems unethical to me. It doesn't make sense that the city should increase someone's property taxes when they have done nothing to increase the value of their own property. So I would say that we could put in a local ordinance that uses the appraisal value prior to any appraisal due to just increasing the neighboring property values. So the last appraisal from when that property itself was improved for taxing purposes, rather than increasing taxes on somebody just because their neighborhood got better. I think that would be reasonable and more fair than doubling someone's taxes just because a business came in before.
Thank you.
That's harsh to them.
Thank you. Deborah Peoples, over to you.
So Ryan, one of the things that this brings to mind is gentrification and what happens, but we need to bring more jobs and better jobs in communities like my community on the east side that have been historically ignored. But I think we have to get creative. And I think a lot about, the 65-year older and exemption. As a senior citizen, my taxes are frozen. We need to look at creative ways for how we help long-term residents in these communities stay there, because what we don't want to do is move businesses in and move long-term residents out. We're trying to lift the quality of the neighborhood, not displace our residents.
Thank you. Ann Zeta.
Thank you. I absolutely do not want people to be opposed to improvements to their neighborhood for fear that the values of their properties are going to go up to a point where they have to be displaced. Every community deserves to have the highest quality of life. And therefore, when we have improvements coming, folks should have an ability to be a part of that decision-making process and understand what those improvements will bring, and then have tools in place to protect them from displacement that could occur because the value of the area is going up. There's the tax exemption for seniors. There's also the ability to defer taxes for seniors. So there are ways of getting around displacement completely if that is a situation. But I think that making sure that you have the residents involved in the decisions that are made and the growth that is coming and the improvements that are coming so that they have a voice in what those improvements are is the way to make sure that everyone is a part of the conversation and a part of the plan and a part of the benefits that come from those improvements.
Thank you. Let's talk about the COVID-19 pandemic and specifically the effect on small business, which suffered tremendous losses from shutdowns. How would you improve the environment overall for those who are looking to start or rebuild such businesses?
Ryan, real quick, did you want me to answer that last question, or is it just for certain candidates? I apologize.
It was it was just for certain candidates, but if you
Right.
want to use a challenge, here's your chance.
Just following the rules. Thank you.
All right, thanks. On that small business question, let's start with Deborah Peoples.
Oh, I'm unmuted. So we have to do a better job of taking care of our small businesses, Ryan. I mean, I live in a community that is dependent on small businesses, and many of them did not know about CARES Act money. They didn't know how to apply for the money. I mean, we've got to do a better outreach program to reaching our small businesses and making sure that they are getting what they need. While we want big businesses to move here, while we want corporations to move here, we need to understand that small businesses are the lifeblood of the community, and especially in underserved communities. For many times, that's the only businesses that we have. So we need to do better outreach to make sure that they are getting the services that are available to them.
Thank you. Maddie Parker, over to you.
Sure. So I'm actually going to compliment the City Council and City of Fort Worth for what they did with CARES Act dollars. It was really unprecedented when you compare us to other Texas cities and the money they poured back into small businesses. We're going to have to really pivot now and think about what it takes for businesses to recover or for small businesses to start after COVID-19. It starts at the basic city essential services. Let's talk about your planning and permitting department. We need a small business liaison office to make sure those small mom and pops can come to the City of Fort Worth, not be intimidated by the process. I had a well-known restaurateur tell me yesterday that his estimation is right now to open a restaurant in the City of Fort Worth could cost you as much as $250,000. That is not the way you encourage small businesses across the city. And the second piece is really around city infrastructure, and it ties into that other question, Ryan. When you think about small business opportunity, what does city infrastructure do to spur private investment? And when you have historic businesses that may be in an area where city infrastructure is coming in, how do you make sure you're partnering with new development and the public sector to keep those businesses in place and put them even in a new facility, but make sure they maintain the opportunity to do business in a historic way they have in those neighborhoods?
Thank you. Ann Zeta.
Struggling with the unmute situation here. Can you hear
You got
me?
it. Yeah,
Okay.
you're good.
I absolutely think that we have an excellent example of what we can do as a city to support our small businesses in the near South Side during COVID specifically. While there were some losses, and those are devastating, and we never like to see any small business go out of business, there have been openings during COVID. So the support that the city has provided to small businesses alongside Near South Side Inc., with supporting gig economy workers, supporting people who are not working by giving them grants during this time, and then helping people actually open businesses during COVID has been an example in the Near South Side that is unprecedented. But that is not something that should be limited to the Near South Side. I'm proud that it happened in District 9, but that's something that I would want to see spread to neighborhoods and businesses across the entire city under my leadership as mayor.
Thank you.
Know that those participating in the various ride-sharing services are considered to be small business owners and entrepreneurs. So I would say that in the demand for better public transit, the city actually should do more to partner with Uber and Lyft in order to provide the on-demand services that have become more common and that technology made possible over the past several years. that we didn't used to have as an option. It is frankly a model that has served well. Other approaches to attracting small business include allowing people to have certain types of small businesses out of their homes.
Let me follow up on when you mentioned the rideshare. Are you referring specifically to supporting rideshare, or is there something in the rideshare model that you think can be applied to other entrepreneurs?
I know that I have slightly different models. Not only are Uber and Lyft prominent, but there are other services like Alto that treat their drivers like employees rather than contractors on a brokerage platform. So I would also say to legalize again Airbnb, because it's prohibited right out of the city, and despite it being prohibited, there are more than 800 Airbnb units available for rent within the city. If we stop discouraging it, then we will increase the opportunities to be able to participate in it.
Great, thank you. Manny, over to you on the question of supporting entrepreneurship.
And this whole definition of what art is to all areas of the city.
Gotcha, thank you. Ms. Zeta, you've raised your hand. Go ahead, please.
I think absolutely there are ways to market the city in a way that highlights these things and encourages folks to notice all the parts of the city. So we've had some great success with supporting entrepreneurs in some areas that have already been mentioned with the Iterate program in the near South Side. And then with art being spread out through the entire community, public art, that is exactly what it does. I've board outside of the areas that are already successful is a way to make the whole city thrive.
Great, thank you. This next question will be for each of you. Businesses will look to the mayor to improve processes such as permitting, which was mentioned before, and make development more efficient. But as you well know, the mayor has no direct control over city departments. How will you wield influence to get things done? We will start with Deborah Peoples on this one.
So, Ryan, I'm a big one about, as a business person, explaining to people the WIFM, what's in it for them. And I think that the mayor has to understand that, and the city employees have to understand that if we don't streamline our processes, people don't want to do business here. And if they don't do business here, then we don't grow. And ultimately, if we don't grow, that we hire fewer people and they might not have jobs. So I think the mayor has to not only be the cheerleader for the city, but she also has to be the cheerleader internally so that employees understand what's at stake here. And when you make employees understand what's at stake here, people buy into teams and you build great teams and effective teams. And that's how I think we're going to do it, is with the WIFM, what's in it for them.
Daniel Caldwell.
There are, in fact, two ways for the mayor to actually be able to take direct control. And by doing so, anytime the city manager agrees with you, you may as well have the control to be able to address issues just like the city manager and the department heads would. The other way, if you're butting heads with the city manager, is to get a majority on the city council, because the city council still has oversight and authority over the city manager. So I've got two different ways to work diplomatically to have the same power and authority as the city manager.
Thank you, Daniel.
By agreement with one group of people, or
thank you. Yes, okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to Ann Zeta.
I am so glad you asked this question, because as someone who has been city staff for multiple relationships, to be able to talk with city staff and make sure that they buy into being a part of a team that delivers an excellent customer service. As someone who has reviewed ordinances for cities throughout the Metroplex in the past and gone over them to determine whether they're still necessary, whether there's unintended consequences that have come from those ordinances, whether the layering and layering and layering of those ordinances on top of each other have led to red tape that makes it prohibitive for people to be served in our city, that is something that I can definitely speak the language of the staff that does that work. I can speak the language of a resident who has to muddle through that work, and I can speak that language of the policymaker working with all of those groups.
Thank you. Maddie Parker on the question of wielding influence.
We've got to change the culture at City Hall. We have to be a get to yes environment where businesses are excited to come to City Hall no matter what they're doing. They're paying their water bill or they're bringing us a multi-million-dollar development. I worked alongside a lot of those employees in the planning development department. They're bright. They care about their city. We need to empower them differently to make sure they understand we have to be client focused across the city of Fort Worth. We have too many rules. We have too many committees and not enough action. We need to pilot really quickly, as soon as this summer, specific things that our development review committee and others have been asking us to do for years. We need to empower employees differently. How do you do that? We need to create a new incentive process through our HR department that really creates a new pay for performance for these departments that are really interfacing with community all the time. I would also institute a way for citizens to come forward and say what their interaction was like with each employee to make sure they feel like they're being served. And the last thing I'll say, we have this incredible opportunity in a new city hall because environment matters. We have people that have been working for the city for decades, and they've been in the basement of City Hall trying to work together in silos and cubicles. I think the way that they work together in teams is absolutely a consideration. We have to move forward very quickly, and I would prioritize that environment above all others. Thank you.
Got it. Thank you. Let's talk about transit. Without a large-scale sales tax investment, which doesn't appear likely, what are the most realistic small bore solutions we can turn to, and how would you pay for them? We'll start with Ann Zeta.
Am I unmuted?
You're good, Ann. Go ahead.
Okay, I keep getting a pop-up that says that I'm not. So thank you for that question. I absolutely am the candidate that is very, very passionate about public transportation. And I believe that we need to look for all resources to fund that transit. I believe in a visionary plan for our city so that we are primed and ready to, as those funding dollars become available in various different forms, and that we need to look at every single possibility for funding transit that comes before us. We have had instances where there were ideas brought forward and folks just didn't come to the table to have those conversations. And that is not the way to run a city. We absolutely have to be ready to take advantage of infrastructure dollars that might come from the federal level, the collaboration and cooperation that's now happening within the region of all of the cities in the region, as well as the county, and the work that we've done here at the city level and RTC.
Let me jump in with a quick follow-up. Can you give me one example of a specific program that you would like to pursue?
A specific program funding
A specific transit program or funding stream.
Funding stream. I mean, we've talked about property tax, we've talked about sales tax, we've talked about collaborating with the county, which we are absolutely doing now. The county has a bond coming up, and we have collaborated with them on that bond in order to access 50-50 funding for transit things, which is prioritizing transit on streets to make transit more successful on those streets. It's not just about handing money over to Trinity Metro or another organization. It's about making our city ready for the transit that comes so that we can, and the transit that's planned, so that it can be successful here. That's making the walk to your bus stop more.
Gotcha. Thank you. Maddie, over to you.
Yeah, so here's the deal with transit. We are capped right now. Property taxes and general fund dollars is not the way you're going to get there. If you want to have a visionary plan for the city of Fort Worth, and I absolutely agree, public transit is a way of the future. You have employers that would love to look at Fort Worth as an opportunity, and they do ask about what you're going to do in public transit. The only way you're going to get there with the amount of money that we need investment for both capital and operating every year is with our federal and state partners. Many of the transit move planned options that were put forward from a funding stream mechanism all required that type of partnership. Whether you're looking at this latest infrastructure bill or a change in state fund, all of those things happen. And it takes a robust advocacy plan where you're working with multiple partners to really make that happen. Right now, we need to prioritize the projects that we know get people to jobs as quickly as possible. I'm proud of the work that Trinity Metro has done with these zip zones in partnership with VIA in specific high growth areas where we know there are jobs to get people to. We need to continue to work with them closely. I'm excited about that opportunity. We need to all, that proverbial come to the table has to happen. We need to be real about what it looks like for taxpayers.
Thank you. Deborah, over to you.
Okay, I'm unmuted. So, Ryan, you said something at the beginning that was kind of jarring. You said small bore projects. We can't think small. When we think about transportation, it is a key driver for recruiting businesses to come here. So we've got to think big. We have to be visionary about mass transit. And I will tell you, we have to be willing and have a great working relationship with our federal and state partners. We have to find the dollars. I have that. I have that relationship, and I'm willing to go after it, because I would tell you right now, and I tell everybody this, the only really mass transit we have right now is the city bus. We've done a horrible job and a disservice to our only mass transportation, the city bus, because we have allowed it to get stigmatized, and many people don't want to ride it. We've got to rebrand that, but then we have to think visionary and start working working with our federal and state partners to find the dollars to create a world-class transportation system, because then we'll be able to not only get our people where they need to go, but we'll be able to get corporations to come here.
Thank you. So for our final question before our summarizing statements, I'd like to ask each of you to tell us what kind of a leader you would be by identifying someone, preferably a Fort Worthian, but at least a Texan, who you would model your approach as mayor after, and what characteristics of that person draws you to try to emulate them. Maddie, we'll start with you.
I'm going to use former Secretary of the Army, Pete Guerin, who's become a friend and mentor for years. He truly embodies what a statesman looks like, an inclusive leader who listens, takes action, and is always solution-oriented and continues to give back to our city. That is the type of leader I am and want to embody and continue to move this city forward. Pete's a great example of somebody that has his feet firmly planted in our history, but also looks forward to what it looks like to grow this fine city into a world-class place where we can have jobs, opportunity, education, and all for every single child in Fort Worth.
Daniel Caldwell.
So I have repeatedly mentioned that I respect the approach taken by former governor of Texas, Alan Shivers, who I don't agree with on everything he did, but who was remarkable in that he was nominated by both the Republican and Democratic parties at the same time. He was able to get the full spectrum of support from 98% of Texans, so not quite everybody, but he worked not as an authoritarian, but diplomatically in establishing roles and schedules and committee powers in order to get work done.
Thank you. Deborah, how about you?
So I have to mail two people together, community leader Opal Lee and the late Pauline Feliciano. They have made me who I am. They're about inclusion. They were persistent. They were dedicated. They were committed. They saw Fort Worth as it could be, and they worked to bring everybody to the table. And so those are two women that I loved. Those are two women that I still love, who were my mentors, and they loved Fort Worth more than anything in the world. They loved it as much as I do.
And Zeta.
I'm going to have to mention two people as well. One person, an elected official, Kenneth Barr, who was our mayor, and the way that he worked with his entire council and spoke with everyone and brought everyone to the table on all decisions, even if he knew that someone was going to be in disagreement with him. And the second is Sandra Dennehy, who unfortunately we lost. But she was a community advocate and community leader that worked in neighborhoods, bringing people together and improving her own, improving her own neighborhood. And that is the kind of leader that I've been in my own neighborhood. It's the kind of leader I've been as an appointed official, and it's the kind of leader I've been as a council member, and the kind of leader I would be as mayor.
Thank you. It's time for our summarizing closing statements. You'll have 30 seconds. Ms. Zeta, we'll start with you.
Still unmuted. Good. Absolutely love this opportunity to speak with all of you, this huge group of passionate folks in our community who believe in Fort Worth and want Fort Worth to be the community that it can be for everyone who lives here and everyone who works here and everyone who visits here. I am a person who has done that in this community, and I will continue to do it regardless of what role that I have. This whole process has been inspiring to me to see the folks that want to work hard to make Fort Worth the best place that it can possibly be. And I appreciate the opportunity and hope that I can earn your support as your next mayor.
Deborah Peoples.
Thank you, Ryan. So I like to tell everyone that I am a product of Fort Worth. I've had amazing mentors who have been with me. I don't know why my video keeps going off, but so I think I am the perfect candidate. I am this amazing melding of not only my business experience, because I have 30 years in business, I have an MBA, but I also have this amazing connection to the community and the work that I've done. I am a candidate of the people, for the people, by the people, and I know that I will bring us together. Thank you.
Maddie Parker.
Thank y'all for putting this on. It's like speed dating for political candidates. I think you've done an excellent job. I'll just say a few things. It is time to move Fort Worth forward. This is an incredibly important time for our community, and I'm excited to be running this race because I believe in Fort Worth, Texas, and its residents. I think experience, leadership, and style matter. I want everyone on this call to understand what it means for someone like me to be endorsed by the folks I'm endorsed by. Not just Mayor Price, but the folks that I do life with every single day that have worked alongside me. I was a person you called to help you find solutions, both at City Hall, in Washington, and in Austin. And I'm going to apply that same tenacity of leadership and experience to be your next Fort Worth mayor. Thank you for having me today.
And Daniel Caldwell.
I'm going to tell you what the people who I've talked to have told me why they want to support me. And it's because, simply put, my heart's in the right place and I care about them, their stories, their problems. I have a world-class education, but nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And my approach is not to force my agenda on anyone, and I don't want to give speeches, but I do want to have two-way communication in order to address people's problems in timely fashions with minimal red tape and bureaucracy.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Candidates, thank you very much for your substantive discussion and for fighting through our technology issues. This is the era of Zoom, for better or worse, so we appreciate it. And I'll throw it back to Carlo for our closing.
Yes, thank you. And just one more time, thank you to all the candidates. We really appreciate you coming out. Let's do a little razzle dazzle here. All right, here we go. So thank you all so much for being a part of this. And thanks to our esteemed Ryan Rusak of the Star Telegram. Virtual applause for him being an outstanding moderator. It was really fantastic. And we appreciate you very much, Ryan. So to close this out, don't forget, we hope that was fast paced enough for you. That was a pretty quick mayoral forum. We hope we got to an issue that is near and dear to your heart or you're compassionate about. These videos will live on the Facebook chamber for the Fort Worth the Facebook page for the Fort Worth Chamber of Commerce, as well as star-telegram.com. Don't forget, early voting starts, if you can believe it, next Monday, April 19th. So be sure and vote. Election Day, Saturday, May the 1st. We'd like to, once again, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you to our presenting sponsors, the Fort Worth Metropolitan Black Chamber of Commerce, the Fort Worth Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Fort Worth Chamber of Commerce, and then the Fort Worth Star Telegram. Thank you also to the meeting squad for helping us navigate this digital universe. We really appreciate you being here. Have a great rest of your day, and remember to vote. We'll see you soon.